One look, one snap judgment, one humiliating exit. That's all it took for a luxury store to learn the hard way that you never judge a book by its cover, especially when it's Cristiano Ronaldo. In the heart of Miami's glitziest mall, where glass storefronts gleamed under crystal chandeliers and the air hummed with wealth, a man slipped through the crowd unnoticed. He wore a plain black t-shirt, faded jeans, and a worn baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. His sneakers scuffed softly against the polished marble floor, a stark contrast to the clacking heels and designer loafers around him. This was Ronaldo, the soccer legend whose name echoed through stadiums worldwide, but here, in this temple of luxury, he was just another face. His broad shoulders moved with an easy grace, and his eyes, sharp yet warm, scanned the scene with quiet curiosity. The mall buzzed with shoppers clutching glossy bags, their voices a mix of laughter and hushed awe. Ronaldo's lips curved into a faint smile, the kind that held stories of triumphs and trials, as he stepped into Lux Haven, a store where diamonds sparkled like stars and watches cost more than cars. The air inside was cool, scented with leather and ambition. Vitrines glowed, showcasing treasures that screamed exclusivity. Sales associates in crisp suits glided between clients, their smiles practiced but cold. Ronaldo's presence barely registered at first. He wandered toward a display of watches, their faces glinting under pinpoint lights. His fingers hovered near a sleek rose gold timepiece, its price tag reading $150,000. He didn't touch it, just studied it, his head tilted like an artist admiring a canvas. Yo, if this story pumps you up, smash that like button, comment, let's go, and subscribe. Don't miss the surprise waiting in the final moments. Across the store, James, the manager, stood tall in a tailored navy suit, his slicked back hair catching the light. His eyes, narrow and calculating, locked onto Ronaldo. James's jaw tightened. To him, Ronaldo didn't belong. No designer labels, no flashy entourage, no aura of wealth that James had trained himself to spot. He saw only a man in cheap clothes, a curiosity seeker who dared to linger where only the elite should tread. James's lips curled into a sneer. He adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous tick, and strode forward, his polished shoes clicking with purpose. "Sir," he said, his voice smooth but laced with contempt. "Can I assist you?" The question wasn't an offer. It was a challenge. Ronaldo turned, his cap shadowing his face, but his eyes met James's without flinching. "Just looking," he said, his voice low, steady, with a hint of an accent that carried fields and favelas. James's smile didn't reach his eyes. "This section is for serious buyers," he said, folding his arms. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable elsewhere." The words landed like a slap, sharp and deliberate. Ronaldo's expression didn't change. He'd faced worse. Booing crowds, brutal tackles, skeptics who doubted his rise from nothing. But the sting of being judged, of being sized up and found wanting, still pricked. He nodded slowly, as if weighing James's words, then stepped back from the vitrine. The store's hum faltered. A young sales associate, Mia, froze mid-step, her tray of champagne flutes trembling. She knew that face. Those eyes. She'd watched Ronaldo's goals on repeat, his artistry on the pitch a beacon of hope in her own tough childhood. Her breath caught, but fear glued her lips shut. Speaking up could cost her job. She glanced at James, his smugness radiating, and felt her stomach twist. Ronaldo moved toward another display, this one holding a diamond-encrusted watch priced at $200,000. He leaned closer, his reflection mingling with the gems. James followed, his patience thinning. "Sir," he said louder now, "these items aren't for handling. If you're not purchasing, I'll have to ask you to leave." The store grew quieter. Customers glanced over, their curiosity piqued. A woman in a fur coat whispered to her companion, her brows raised. Ronaldo straightened, his smile fading but not gone. "Didn't plan to touch anything," he said, his tone calm but firm. "Just admiring." James scoffed, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a hiss. "This isn't a museum. We cater to clients who belong here." The word belong hung in the air, heavy with prejudice. Mia's hands shook, a flute nearly slipping. She wanted to scream, to tell James he was humiliating a legend, but her rent, her bills, her dreams of college kept her silent. Ronaldo's eyes flicked to her, catching her panic, and for a moment his gaze softened as if saying, "It's okay." He turned back to James. "You sure about that?" he asked, his voice quiet but edged with steel. James blinked, thrown by the confidence, but doubled down. "I'm sure," he snapped. "Please, leave, now." The command echoed, drawing every eye. A man in a suit paused, his phone halfway to his ear. A teenage boy, Ethan, tugged at his mother's sleeve, his eyes wide. "Mom, that's Ronaldo," he whispered, his voice cracking with excitement. His mother, Sarah, shushed him, but her own eyes narrowed, recognition dawning. Ronaldo didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply nodded, his cap dipping slightly, and walked toward the exit. His steps were unhurried, deliberate, each one a quiet rebuke. The store's atmosphere shifted, the air thick with unease. Ethan's whisper grew louder. "It's him, Mom! Cristiano Ronaldo!" Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, her heart racing. She'd seen Ronaldo's face on billboards, on her son's posters, a symbol of grit and glory. James froze, his smirk faltering. "What?" he muttered, glancing at Ethan, then back at Ronaldo's retreating figure. Mia stepped forward, her voice barely audible. He's right," she stammered. James whipped around, his face reddening. "Don't be ridiculous," he hissed, but doubt crept into his eyes. Ronaldo reached the glass doors, his hand on the handle. He paused, glancing back, his gaze sweeping the room. It wasn't anger in his eyes, but something deeper, disappointment, laced with resolve. He pushed the door open and stepped out, the mall's noise swallowing him. Inside, silence reigned. James stood rooted, his chest heaving. Ethan's voice broke the spell. "You just kicked out Ronaldo," he said, louder now, his face a mix of shock and glee. Sarah pulled him close, her eyes locked on James, her expression a mix of pity and scorn. Customers murmured, their whispers like ripples. Was that really him? Did he just... What an idiot. Mia set her tray down, her hands trembling. She wanted to run after Ronaldo, to apologize, to say she saw him, the real him, but she stayed, her heart sinking. James forced a laugh, brittle and unconvincing. "No way," he said, waving a hand. "That guy? Ronaldo? Come on." But his voice cracked, and his eyes darted to the door, as if expecting Ronaldo to storm back. He didn't. Outside, Ronaldo walked through the mall, his cap low, his heart heavy but unbroken. He'd faced rejection before, but this cut differently. Not for himself, but for everyone who'd ever been dismissed, judged, cast aside. The mall's lights blurred around him, and he headed toward a quiet cafe, unaware that his exit had sparked a fire that would soon engulf the store, James, and everyone who'd witnessed the misjudgment of a man whose worth no price tag could measure. Ronaldo slipped into the quiet hum of Bean and Bliss, a cozy cafe tucked in a corner of the Miami Mall, its warm lights a stark contrast to the sterile glow of Lux Haven. The air carried the rich scent of roasted coffee and fresh pastries, a comfort that eased the sting of what had just happened. He pulled his cap lower, settling into a corner booth, its worn leather creaking under his weight. His eyes, shadowed but sharp, scanned the room, not with suspicion, but with the quiet awareness of someone who'd learned to read crowds long ago. Shoppers passed outside, their arms heavy with bags, their laughter muffled by the glass. Ronaldo's fingers tapped lightly on the table, a rhythm born from years of waiting, for a pass, a goal, a moment. He ordered a black coffee, his voice soft but steady, and the barista, Leo, a lanky kid with a faded band tee and a wide grin, nodded eagerly. "Coming right up, man," Leo said, his eyes lingering a second too long, as if trying to place him. Ronaldo smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hid 1,000 stories, and turned his gaze to the window where the mall's chaos unfolded like a distant game. Inside Lux Haven, the air was thick with tension. James, the manager, stood frozen near the watch display, his polished facade cracking. His hands fidgeted with his tie, his mind replaying the moment Ronaldo walked out. Ethan's words, "You just kicked out Ronaldo," echoed like a taunt. Customers whispered, their eyes darting between James and the door. Mia, the young sales associate, clutched her tray, her heart pounding. She'd known it was Ronaldo from the second he walked in, his walk unmistakable, like he was still gliding across a pitch. But fear had silenced her. She glanced at James, his face pale, his arrogance replaced by a flicker of panic. "He's not... He can't be," James muttered, more to himself than anyone. Mia swallowed hard, stepping closer. "It was him," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "Cristiano Ronaldo. I've seen every game. That was him." James's head snapped toward her, his eyes narrowing. "You're sure?" he hissed, his voice a mix of doubt and dread. Mia nodded, her cheeks flushed. Same walk, same eyes. It's him. The store buzzed with murmurs. Ethan, the teenage fan, tugged at his mother Sarah's arm, his phone already out typing furiously. Mom, I'm posting this. That guy's a jerk. Sarah, a no-nonsense woman in a denim jacket, frowned but didn't stop him. Be careful, Ethan, she said, her voice low, but her own phone was in her hand, her thumbs hovering over the screen. She'd seen Ronaldo's face on her son's posters, his name a constant in their home. The injustice of what happened burned in her chest. She opened her social media app, her fingers quick. Just saw Cristiano Ronaldo get kicked out of Lux Haven in Miami for not belonging. Unreal. Hashtag respect Ronaldo. She hit post, her heart racing. Within minutes, likes and retweets poured in, the story spreading like wildfire. Customers in the store began pulling out their phones, some filming James, others searching for Ronaldo's recent photos. A man in a suit muttered, "That was really him. What an idiot." James caught the words, his face reddening. He turned to Mia. "Why didn't you say something?" he snapped, his voice sharp but brittle. Mia's jaw tightened. "I tried," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You didn't listen." Outside, Ronaldo sipped his coffee, the bitterness grounding him. Leo, the barista, approached cautiously, wiping his hands on his apron. "Hey man, not to pry, but you're Ronaldo, right?" His voice was a mix of awe and nerves. Ronaldo's eyes crinkled, his smile genuine. "Yeah, man. Just grabbing a coffee." Leo's face lit up, his hands trembling as he set down a plate of pastries. "On the house," he said, his voice cracking. "I watched you growing up. You're a legend." Ronaldo leaned back, his posture relaxed, but his eyes distant. "Thanks, Leo," he said, reading the kid's name tag. "Means a lot, but I'm just a guy today." Leo shook his head, grinning. "Nah, you're more than that. What happened back there? That wasn't right." Ronaldo's smile faded, his fingers tightening around the mug. He didn't respond, but his silence spoke volumes. He'd faced judgment before, on the streets, in the early days, when no one believed the skinny kid could become a star. But this, being dismissed in a place dripping with wealth, hit differently. It wasn't about him. It was about everyone who'd ever been sized up and found lacking. Back at Lux Haven, the mood shifted from tense to chaotic. Phones pinged as Sarah's post gained traction, hashtags like #Ronaldo humiliated trending locally. James's phone buzzed in his pocket, notifications piling up. He pulled it out, his hands shaking, and saw the post. His stomach dropped. "Ronaldo humiliated in luxury store," was the headline forming in his mind, a PR nightmare. He turned to Mia, desperation creeping into his voice. "Find him," he said. "Now." Mia hesitated, her loyalty to her job warring with her disgust at James's actions. "He's gone," she said, her voice cold. "You made sure of that." James's face twisted, but before he could snap back, a security guard, Tom, poked his head in. A burly man with a kind face, Tom had seen Ronaldo exit and recognized him instantly. "You really messed up, man," Tom said, shaking his head. "That was Cristiano freaking Ronaldo. You're gonna regret this." James's knees buckled slightly, his bravado crumbling. He grabbed his jacket. "I'll fix this," he muttered, storming out, his polished shoes slipping on the marble. Ronaldo sat in the cafe, his coffee half gone, his mind replaying the encounter. He wasn't angry. Anger was a young man's game. But he felt a quiet resolve, a need to do something, not for himself, but for the principle. He thought of his mother, scrubbing floors to keep him in cleats, judged for her worn clothes and calloused hands. He thought of the kids like Leo, who saw him as proof that dreams could outshine doubt. He set his mug down, his jaw set. Leo approached again, this time with a pen and napkin. "Could you maybe sign this?" he asked, sheepish. Ronaldo chuckled, taking the pen. "For you, man," he said, scrawling his name with a flourish. As he handed it back, He saw James through the cafe's window, hurrying toward the entrance, his face flushed, his tie askew. Ronaldo's eyes narrowed, but his expression stayed calm, almost serene. James burst into the cafe, his breath ragged. "Sir," he called, spotting Ronaldo. Heads turned, the cafe's hum faltering. Ronaldo leaned back, his arms crossed, his gaze steady. "What's up?" he said, his voice low, almost playful, but with an edge that made James flinch. I made a mistake," James stammered, his voice high and strained, his polished facade now a sweaty mess. "I didn't recognize you. Please, come back to the store. Let us make this right." His words tumbled out, desperate, rehearsed, but hollow. Ronaldo tilted his head, his eyes piercing through James's flimsy excuse. "You didn't recognize me," he said, his voice calm but heavy, each word deliberate. "But you saw me, and you judged." James's mouth opened, then closed, his face a mask of regret and fear. The cafe's patrons watched, their coffees forgotten, their phones discreetly recording. Leo stood behind the counter, his arms crossed, his grin barely hidden. He'd seen men like James before, men who thought money defined worth. Ronaldo leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his presence commanding without effort. "You didn't just disrespect me," he said. "You disrespected everyone who doesn't fit your mold. People like my mom, who worked herself raw to give me a shot. People like Leo here, who's got more heart than you'll ever know." Leo's eyes widened, his chest swelling with pride. James's shoulders sagged, his authority gone, his mistake laid bare. Outside, the mall's energy shifted. Sarah's post had exploded, retweets climbing into the thousands. Respect Ronaldo trended, comments flooding with outrage and admiration. "Luxhaven's done for," one read. "Ronaldo's a king," said another. Shoppers lingered near the cafe's windows, whispering, pointing. A young woman, Rachel, a local journalist with a nose for stories, jotted notes on her phone, her eyes flicking between Ronaldo and the growing crowd. She'd been at the mall for a different story, but this was gold, a tale of humility versus hubris. Tom, the security guard, stood nearby, his arms crossed, his face a mix of respect and amusement. He'd known Ronaldo's face the moment he saw him, a hero from his Sunday game-watching days. "Told you, man," he muttered to himself, shaking his head. James caught Tom's eye and looked away, his face burning. He knew the story was out of his control now, a wildfire he'd ignited with his own arrogance. Ronaldo stood, his movements slow, deliberate, like he was stepping onto a pitch before a penalty kick. The cafe fell silent, every eye on him. He adjusted his cap, his gaze sweeping the room, then landing on James. "You want me to come back?" he asked, his voice steady, almost gentle, but with a weight that made James shrink. "Fine, I'll come back, not to prove anything to you, but to show you what you missed." James nodded quickly, his relief fleeting, his hands trembling. Ronaldo turned to Leo, slipping a 20 into the tip jar. "Keep shining, brother," he said, his voice warm. Leo grinned, clutching the signed napkin like a trophy. "You too, man," he replied, his voice thick with awe. Ronaldo walked out, his steps unhurried, the crowd parting like a sea. James trailed behind, his polished shoes scuffing, his confidence shattered. Sarah and Ethan watched from the sidelines, Sarah's phone still buzzing with notifications. "He's going back," she whispered to Ethan, who pumped his fist. "This is going to be epic." The mall seemed to hold its breath as Ronaldo approached Luxhaven again. Shoppers slowed, their bags forgotten, their eyes locked on the man in the cap. Rachel followed at a distance, her pen flying across her notepad, her story already taking shape. Tom walked nearby, not as a guard but as a fan, his presence a quiet nod to Ronaldo's dignity. The store's glass doors loomed ahead, their shine mocking James's earlier dismissal. Ronaldo's face was calm, but his eyes burned with purpose. He wasn't returning for revenge, he was returning for every kid told they didn't belong, every worker judged by their clothes, every dreamer dismissed by a glance. His hand touched the door, his heart steady. He'd faced bigger battles, on fields, in life, but this one mattered, not for fame, not for pride, for the truth. The doors swung open, and the store's lights hit him like a spotlight. Mia's eyes widened, her tray forgotten. James stumbled behind, his breath shallow. The crowd outside pressed closer, phones raised, ready for what came next. Ronaldo stepped inside, his presence a quiet storm, ready to rewrite the story James had started. The glass doors of Lux Haven swung shut behind Ronaldo, the soft thud echoing like a gavel in a courtroom. The store's polished interior, with its gleaming vitrines and hushed reverence, felt like a stage set for judgment. Ronaldo stood tall, his black t-shirt and faded jeans a stark contrast to the tailored suits and sparkling jewels around him. His baseball cap cast a shadow over his eyes, but they burned with a quiet intensity, steady and unyielding. The air was thick, charged with anticipation. Customers lingered near displays, pretending to browse but stealing glances. Sales associates froze, their practiced smiles faltering. Mia, the young associate who'd recognized him from the start, stood by the watch counter, her hands clasped, her heart racing. She'd stayed silent before, bound by fear, but now her eyes followed Ronaldo, bright with hope. James, the manager, trailed behind, his navy suit wrinkled, his face a mask of sweat and shame. His earlier arrogance had crumbled, leaving a man scrambling to salvage what little dignity remained. Ronaldo's steps were slow, deliberate, each one a reminder of the space he commanded, not through wealth, but through presence. He stopped at the same vitrine he'd been shooed away from, its rose gold watch glinting under the lights, its $500,000 price tag a silent challenge. Ronaldo's lips curved, not into a smile, but something sharper, more resolute. "This one," he said, his voice clear, cutting through the store's hum. "I'd like to see it." His finger pointed to the watch, his gaze never leaving the glass. Mia hesitated, her eyes flicking to James, who nodded jerkily, his hands fumbling with his tie. She stepped forward, her fingers trembling as she unlocked the vitrine. The watch sat heavy in her hands, its diamonds catching the light like tiny suns. She offered it to Ronaldo, her voice soft. "Here you go, sir." Ronaldo took it, his touch gentle, almost reverent. He turned it over, studying the craftsmanship, his expression unreadable. The store held its breath. Customers edged closer, their phones discreetly raised. A woman in a silk scarf whispered to her husband, "Is that really him?" Her husband nodded, his eyes wide. "That's Ronaldo, no doubt." James hovered nearby, his voice cracking as he tried to regain control. "Sir, we'd be honored to show you our full collection. Anything you want." His words were desperate, a plea wrapped in false hospitality. Ronaldo didn't look at him. He slipped the watch onto his wrist, the weight familiar, like the pressure of a packed stadium. "Nice," he said, his voice low, almost to himself. "But it's not about the watch, is it?" He turned, his eyes locking onto James, who flinched as if struck. The room seemed to shrink, every eye on Ronaldo, every ear straining for his next words. He stepped away from the vitrine, his movements fluid, and faced the room. "You didn't see me," he said, his voice steady, carrying the weight of years. "You saw a guy in a t-shirt and thought, he doesn't belong. You didn't ask who I was. You didn't care. You judged." The words landed like stones, each one heavy, deliberate. James's face reddened, his eyes darting to the floor. Mia bit her lip, her eyes shining with unshed tears. She'd seen this judgment before, in her neighborhood, at her old jobs, in the mirror. Outside, the mall buzzed with whispers. Sarah, Ethan's mother, stood near the doors, her phone still buzzing with notifications. Her post had gone viral. At Respect, Ronaldo trending nationwide. Ethan bounced on his toes, his eyes glued to Ronaldo. "He's gonna school that guy," he whispered, his voice thick with awe. Rachel, the journalist, scribbled furiously, her notepad filling with quotes. She'd already texted her editor. "This is big. Ronaldo's taking a stand." Tom, the security guard, leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, a proud smile tugging at his lips. He'd known Ronaldo was different the moment he saw him. Not just a star, but a man who carried his roots like a badge. Inside, Ronaldo continued, his voice rising slightly, not in anger, but in conviction. "I grew up with nothing," he said. "My mom worked 3 jobs. People looked at her like you looked at me, like she was less, but she was everything. She taught me respect, real respect, not the kind you fake for a sale. The room was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. A man in a suit lowered his phone, his face flushed with shame. A young couple near the back nodded, their eyes soft with understanding. Mia stepped forward, her voice small but brave. "I knew it was you," she said, her cheeks flushed. "I should have said something. I'm sorry." Ronaldo's eyes softened, his head tilting. "You saw me," he said. "That's enough." He reached out, a brief touch on her shoulder, and Mia's breath hitched, her eyes brimming. James tried to speak, his voice a croak. "Mr. Ronaldo, I was wrong. Let me make this right." Ronaldo turned, his gaze piercing. "You can't make this right with words," he said. "You make it right by changing. By looking at people. Really looking. Not at their clothes, their car, their wallet. At them." James's head dropped, his hands trembling. The store's silence was broken by a sharp click, the glass doors opening. Claire, the regional director, strode in, her heels sharp against the marble. Her tailored blazer and steely gaze screamed authority. She'd seen the viral posts, the videos, the comments tearing Luxhaven apart. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on James, then Ronaldo. "Mr. Ronaldo," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I'm Claire, regional director. What happened here was unacceptable." Ronaldo nodded, his expression neutral. "Appreciate that," he said. "But this isn't about me. It's about what happens every day to people who aren't on billboards." Claire's lips tightened, her respect for him clear. She turned to James, her voice cold. "You're suspended, effective immediately. We'll discuss your future later." James's face crumpled, his shoulders slumping. He tried to speak, but Claire raised a hand, silencing him. She turned back to Ronaldo. "Please, let us show you our collection. No charge, anything you want." Ronaldo shook his head, his smile faint but firm. "I don't want your watches for free," he said. "I'll take this one." He tapped the $500,000 watch on his wrist. "But not for me." He paused, his eyes sweeping the room. "I'm buying it because I can. Because you need to see that judging me was your loss, not mine." The words hung heavy, a lesson carved in silence. He walked to the counter, Mia following, her hands steady now. She rang up the purchase, her fingers quick, her eyes bright with pride. Ronaldo handed over his card, his movements calm, deliberate. The machine beeped, the sale final. He slipped the watch off, placing it in its velvet box. "Send it to the children's hospital," he said, his voice quiet but clear. "Auction it. Let it help kids who need it." Mia's eyes widened, a tear slipping down her cheek. The room erupted in murmurs, customers nodding, some clapping softly. Claire's jaw dropped, her composure shaken. Outside, the crowd grew, phones capturing every moment. Rachel scribbled faster, her story now a tale of redemption. Ethan clutched his mother's arm, his face glowing. "He's the best," he whispered. Sarah nodded, her eyes misty. "He's more than that." Ronaldo turned to the room, his voice steady but warm. "Don't judge a book by its cover," he said. "You don't know who's standing in front of you. Could be a kid with a dream. Could be someone who's fought harder than you'll ever know. See them. Respect them." The words landed like a final whistle, clear and resounding. Customers lowered their eyes, some nodding, others whispering agreement. The young couple clapped, their applause spreading. Mia smiled, her fear gone, replaced by courage. Claire stepped forward, her voice softer now. "Thank you, Mr. Ronaldo, for the lesson." He nodded, his cap dipping. "Just Ronaldo," he said. "That's enough." He walked toward the doors, the crowd parting. Before leaving, he turned to Mia, pulling a pen from his pocket. He scribbled on a napkin, his handwriting quick but careful. "Keep seeing people," it read. "You've got heart. Stay strong." He handed it to her, his smile warm. Mia clutched it, her throat tight. "Thank you," she whispered. Ronaldo nodded, then stepped out, the mall's noise swallowing him. The crowd outside erupted, fans chanting his name. Ethan ran forward, Sarah trailing, both beaming. Leo, the barista, joined them, his signed napkin tucked in his pocket. Tom saluted from a distance, his respect unspoken but clear. Rachel typed furiously, her story already trending. Ronaldo paused, the sunset painting the sky gold, matching the watch he'd left behind. He didn't need it. He'd left something greater, a lesson in dignity, etched in every heart that witnessed it. The story of Cristiano Ronaldo walking into Luxhaven, only to be dismissed and humiliated by a judgmental manager, is more than a tale of a celebrity wronged. It's a mirror held up to society, reflecting how we treat one another based on appearances. As I read through the vivid scenes of Ronaldo's calm defiance, the manager's arrogance, and the ripple effect of a single act of prejudice, I felt a mix of emotions: frustration at the injustice, admiration for Ronaldo's grace, and a deep conviction that this story carries lessons we can all apply. It's not just about a soccer star or a luxury store in Miami. It's about the human tendency to judge, the power of humility, and the courage to stand up for what's right. Below, I'll unpack my reflections and the practical lessons this story offers for everyday life, grounded in values that resonate deeply in American culture: fairness, respect, and the pursuit of personal growth. The moment James, the store manager, sized up Ronaldo and decided he didn't belong hit me hard. It's a scene that plays out everywhere: malls, offices, schools, even our neighborhoods. How many times have we glanced at someone's clothes, their car, their accent, and made a snap judgment? I've done it too, maybe without thinking, dismissing a co-worker's idea because they didn't look the part, or overlooking a quiet kid in class who turned out to be brilliant. James's mistake wasn't just misjudging a celebrity, it was failing to see Ronaldo as a person. In America, we pride ourselves on being a melting pot, a place where anyone can rise from nothing. Yet, this story reminds us that prejudice, whether based on race, class, or style, creeps into our daily interactions, undermining that ideal. The lesson here is clear: we need to check our biases. It's easy to let first impressions guide us, especially in a fast-paced world where we're bombarded with signals, designer labels, polished resumes, social media clout. But those signals don't tell the whole story. Ronaldo, in his t-shirt and jeans, was a global icon, but even if he wasn't, he deserved respect. I'm reminded of a time I worked retail in college, rushing to help the important customers while brushing off others. Looking back, I wonder who I overlooked, what stories I missed. The takeaway? Pause. Look beyond the surface. Ask yourself, what am I assuming and why? In practice, this means giving everyone, your barista, your coworker, the quiet neighbor, a fair shot to be seen for who they are, not what they wear. Ronaldo's response to James's disrespect was a masterclass in humility. He didn't lash out, didn't flaunt his fame, didn't demand an apology. Instead, he walked away, then returned, not for revenge, but to teach. His calm, his poise, his ability to rise above the insult spoke louder than any outburst could. In American culture, we often celebrate boldness, think of the hustle mentality or the loud confidence of reality TV stars. But Ronaldo's quiet strength reminds us that true power doesn't need a megaphone. It's in the way he carried himself, the way he spoke to Mia and Leo, the way he chose dignity over drama. This hits home for me. I've had moments where I wanted to clap back at a rude boss, a snarky comment online, a driver cutting me off. But watching Ronaldo, I see the value in restraint. Humility isn't weakness, it's control. It's choosing to act from a place of strength, not insecurity. In my life, I'm trying to apply this by listening more, reacting less. When a coworker snaps at me, I take a breath, ask questions, try to understand their stress instead of firing back. It's not easy. American culture often rewards the loudest voice, but Ronaldo's example shows that quiet resolve can leave a deeper mark. Try it. Next time you're slighted, pause. Respond with calm, not heat. You'll be surprised how it shifts the dynamic, making you the bigger person without saying a word. Mia's arc in the story moved me deeply. She recognized Ronaldo from the start but stayed silent, paralyzed by fear of losing her job. Yet, by the end, she found her voice, admitting her mistake and earning Ronaldo's respect. Her journey reflects a truth we all face: standing up is hard, especially when the stakes are high. In America, we celebrate whistleblowers, activists, and everyday heroes who speak out. But the reality is, fear often keeps us quiet. I've been there, seeing something wrong at work but hesitating, worried about rocking the boat. Mia's courage, though late, reminds us that it's never too late to do the right thing. The lesson: find your voice, even if it shakes. You don't need to be loud or confrontational. Sometimes it's a quiet word, like Mia's confession to Ronaldo. In my life, I'm working on this by speaking up in small ways. calling out a friend's unfair comment, asking my boss for clearer expectations, or supporting a colleague who's being overlooked. It's scary, but each step builds courage. For you, it might mean advocating for a coworker, challenging a biased remark, or simply saying, "I see you," to someone who's been ignored. Ronaldo's story shows that one voice, his, Mia's, can spark change. Imagine the ripple effect if we all spoke up, even once. Ronaldo's final act, buying the $500,000 watch and donating it to a children's hospital, wasn't just a flex. It was a statement. He didn't need the watch to prove his worth, but he used it to show James, and everyone watching, that true value lies in character, not possessions. This resonates in a culture obsessed with status. Think Instagram influencers, luxury cars, and designer drip. We're bombarded with messages that tie worth to wealth, but Ronaldo flipped the script. He showed that respect, given freely to everyone from Leo the barista to the kids outside, is what defines you. This lesson is one I'm applying daily. In America, where individualism reigns, it's easy to focus on personal gain, climbing the ladder, building your brand. But Ronaldo's story pushes us to lift others up. I've started small, thanking my barista by name, listening to my coworkers' ideas, tipping generously when I can. These acts don't go viral, but they create ripples. I remember a time I thanked a janitor at my office, and his smile stayed with me all day. Ronaldo's donation wasn't just about money, it was about showing what matters. Try it. Do one kind act today, no matter how small. Hold the door, pay a compliment, help a stranger. You'll see how it changes not just them, but you. The crowd's reaction, Ethan's excitement, Sarah's viral post, Leo's awe, Rachel's reporting, shows how one moment can unite people. In America, we're often divided by politics, race, class. But Ronaldo's story brought strangers together rooting for justice. It reminds me of those rare moments, like a neighborhood coming together after a storm or fans cheering at a game, where we feel connected. Ronaldo didn't just teach James a lesson. He inspired Mia, uplifted Leo, and gave Ethan a story to tell. That's the power of leading by example. I'm taking this to heart by building community in my own life. Whether it's joining a local book club, volunteering at a food bank, or just chatting with my neighbor, I'm learning that small connections matter. Ronaldo's story shows that one person's actions can spark a movement. You can do this too. Reach out to someone new, join a cause, share a positive post. It's not about fame, it's about creating moments that remind us we're all in this together. So, how do we live these lessons? First, check your biases daily. Before you judge someone's worth, ask, what don't I know about them? Second, embrace humility. When you're wronged, respond with grace, not anger. It's harder, but it's stronger. Third, find your courage. Speak up even if it's uncomfortable for yourself or someone else. Fourth, prioritize respect over status. Treat everyone, your boss, your server, your rival, with dignity. Finally, build community. Connect with others, not to gain, but to give. These aren't just ideals, they're actions. I'm committing to them, and I challenge you to do the same. Imagine a world where we all live like Ronaldo did in that store, seeing people, not labels. If this story touched you, hit that like button to spread the love. Share it with your friends to spark a conversation about respect and humility. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more stories that inspire us to be better. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Ronaldo's shoes? Let's keep this vibe going, friends. See you in the next video.